Seasoner
and Co.
Welcome to Second-Hand Haunting,
Haunting.
where we read ghost stories and try to make sense of them.
Fun of them.
Sense of them.
Fun of them.
Sense of them.
Fun of
Sense.
them.
Sense.
Fun.
Sense. I found this book in a second-hand store called Haunted Inns by Marc Alexander, where he went around England in the 70s, talked to a bunch of publicans about how their specific inn was haunted, and has compiled them all into one book.
Haunting road trip.
Yeah, right? So I'm sure that he had all this comped by his publisher somehow. I hope he didn't pay a dime for all of this. But it seems that what he has done is written down some pure...
Like a per diem or something?
Oh, I hope so. And presumably all of his meals were comped, all of his drinks were comped, all of his accommodation was comped, right?
I need to get this job.
Well, I don't know if it exists anymore. If it does, it's called influencing, I guess. But
Like haunting YouTube influencer?
yeah. But look, back in 1973, this was a legitimate journalist job where he has accurately relayed the stories of what these publicans were telling him.
That reminds me of you talking about the difference between this being fiction or non-fiction.
It's difficult, right? Because I fully believe that Marc Alexander has gone around England and spoken to these publicans. I can believe that these publicans believe their stories, and they've heard bumps in the night, and they're going to talk about those bumps.
They talked to those bumps. They had dinner with those bumps.
But are there really ghosts in these hotels? I don't know. So I'm going to call this a work of journalism.
I would say it's investigative journalism.
Yeah. I would say it's a blast to read. And I kind of feel like...
Past.
Yeah, well, what do you reckon? We just jump straight into the first story he has for us. It's got to be the best one, surely.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Now, he has organised this book called Haunted Inns into sections. So the first segment is Phantom Coaches. So this is 4 different stories all about phantom coaches, I guess.
I love a phantom, whether it be Phantom of the Opera. I was thinking the Headless Horseman is a phantom, but I don't think he is. Is he phantom-esque?
I could not tell you officially what a phantom is. Perhaps we'll find out. But I think we'll read at least the first story, which is a Phantom Coaches story, and we'll see what else might pique our interest from there. What do you reckon?
I wonder if like a ghost train is a phantom. All right, yes, let's go from there.
The first one he's got for us today is The Queen's Carriage and the Royal Castle. There is an illustration here. The Royal Castle Hotel is the pub that we're talking about, and presumably the Queen's Carriage is the ghost? The phantom?
Sounds like a good place to get a schnitzel.
Oh dear. Sorry to all of your European listeners. Unless you're German, you probably do know what a schnitzel is, and you think that South Australians have absolutely butchered them. You ready?
I am.
Let's do it. There is a dreaming quality about the Royal Castle Hotel, as it stands overlooking a small boat harbour on the River Dart, sharing its reflection with moored yachts and cruisers. So it has dreamed for centuries, offering its hospitality to sailors and crowned heads alike, and peacefully keeping its secrets. The most dramatic of these concerns, a phantom coach, which is heard to rumble right through the building after midnight at a certain time of the year.
What time of year is that?
I don't know. Hopefully we'll find out. But also, is rumbling through the building? The picture that I have here doesn't include like a massive thoroughfare in which a coach could fit through. So presumably they're hearing it just drive through all the walls?
That would certainly draw in the tourists.
Yeah. Well, funny you should say that, because the next sentence is, and there is no shortage of witnesses to this supernatural phenomenon.
Well, look, I'm going to go back to the non-fiction then.
How many specific people do you think are going to get mentioned in the rest of this story?
22.
22? You think we're going to have 22 named witnesses? Oh, I love it.
I'm sticking with it.
Let's listen and let's see if Ollie's right. Once you enter the hotel, which is scheduled as an ancient monument, I think that's probably like it's a heritage listed building, you take an excursion into the past as the proprietress, Miss G.M. Powell, points to the aged ceiling beams. So that's one person.
Should I be noting this down? Should I pop a
it's
note
fine.
plug?
If I run out of fingers, then we'll say that you've got it. Those go back to a wreck from the Spanish Armada.
Just so you know, listeners, I brought up a notebook.
Oh, okay. You're not Googling what the Spanish Armada is, hopefully. We'll give everyone enough credit.
I feel like I've got an idea.
All right,
it was Armada, they were Spanish.
Yeah. The Spanish sent a bunch of warships to attack England back in the hundreds.
English win, I guess.
Yeah. She explains, one of the galleons was washed up on the Blackpool Sands, not far from here. These beams are really spars. You can still see the adze marks and the slots where they fitted the masts. Some nautical terms there, I guess.
And
masts,
where
I know.
The cutlasses grazed the wood.
Possibly.
In
Cannonballs
attacks.
as well.
Cannonballs,
yeah.
yeah.
Above the bar, there is a figurine from a wrecked Spanish ship. Doesn't say what the figurine is, but there is one.
Is it good? Look at the figurine on the top of what's the thing?
Oh, like a figurehead?
Figurehead.
No,
yes.
that
is not a figurine.
It says above the bar, not on the bar, so potentially. But also, I would hope they would have said that it was a figurehead.
I must admit, if I was to run a potentially haunted inn, I would be putting creepy figurines in places.
Yes. Well, you could go overboard and put a bunch of creepy porcelain dolls around the place, but I think that's too much, right?
Yeah. Well, you couldn't go overboard unless you were thrown overboard by the pirates.
The Royal Castle began as a tavern in 1587. Now, listener, we're Australian. You can probably tell that from our accents. And
G'day.
and we're currently in the year 2023. 1587 to me seems unfathomably long ago.
Yeah, they must have had iPads back then.
Oh, God. Eye patches, not iPads. It became a coaching inn in 1639. Okay. And it was not until 1910 that the last real coach pulled up at its doors. Okay, so I guess if it's a coaching inn for a couple hundred years there, it must have some room for a coach to come in.
It really paints a mental picture for me. You know, I'm imagining coaches out the front, the smells, the horses, the smells.
Oh, here we go. Second person, Ollie. Francis Drake. It's a famous person.
I remember having a bit of a peruse over this. Yes, that's right. I read ahead.
What? Even I haven't read this stuff.
Yeah, it was sneaky. But I didn't read very far ahead because, lazy. But I did read in the first couple pages, I saw Francis Drake. And I remember thinking to myself, I know that name.
Yeah.
That's as far as I got.
Oh, okay. Oh, fair enough. He was, well, I could be wrong here. I believe he was what you might call an explorer and or privateer.
He was a pirate.
Yes, pretty much. So a privateer is a pirate who's been sponsored by the government. So when the Spanish were attacking England, the English government, the crown, the queen, said to a whole bunch of
Pirates.
Sailors of dubious quality.
Pirates.
Hey, yeah, we'll pay you to just sail around and fuck up a bunch of these Spanish ships, will you please? So that's probably where you've heard most of the famous pirate names. So Francis Drake, Blackbeard, a few more that I'm forgetting at the moment because I was honestly not expecting this story to turn to pirates.
I don't think Sir Francis Drake made it into any pirate movies like Blackbeard.
No, but he does have a role in Uncharted 4, which is all about pirates and them setting up a colony.
Is that a movie?
No, it's a video game.
Ah, right, sure.
So, Francis Drake and a succession of members of the royalty have slept in its comfortable four-posters, leaving their names on the doors of the chambers they have occupied.
First of all, love that. Second of all, can I count Francis Drake as a person?
Yes. Yeah, we've had two specific people. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that was only a second?
Yeah.
Ah, I thought it was
Yeah, we've had the publican Mrs. Powell and Sir Francis Drake.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to win this.
Now, so we've got, it's essentially saying that a bunch of this royalty have been sleeping in the pub and essentially writing I was here
I was going
carved
to say,
into the door, right?
it reminds me of being a kid. And yes, I was that kid. I was definitely that kid that would get out his compass. And by compass, I don't mean a compass that tells you where north is.
You mean one of the things that draw circles, right?
Yeah.
A pen holder in one end and a really sharp spike on the other?
Yeah. And I used to carve my name into desks.
Why don't I have trouble believing this? Would you have done it, though, to a hotel you were staying at?
When I was in high school? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. All right, so there you go.
I think I did.
Oh, no. The English royalty have approximately the same entitlement as a teenage dolly.
To be fair, that was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, so let's not go nuts.
True, and a lot of these royals might have been a lot younger than we expect them to be, given that it's royalty in the 1600s.
I'd like to think that I'd grown up. I mean, I'm wrong in a lot of ways, but I'd like to.
Oh, get ready for your list there, Ollie. There is a Charles II room, as he was the first royal guest. A Queen Victoria room. And an Edward VII room. So that's 3 more names for him.
Oh, look.
I'm
up to 5.
I know, I'm worried here. If we just keep naming royal family members, we might get to 22 easy. Coming up to present times, there is a Cary Grant room. Hang on, does that mean Cary Grant was in this pub carving his name onto a door? Or did they just name one after him?
I can only imagine that some collector would play handsomely for that door.
Yeah. And several others named after famous film stars who have stayed there. Unnamed, too bad.
I'm trying to remember, I think there was... did you hear about Elvis's plane? Elvis had this plane that he used to charter... Well, not charter, own. Elvis owned a private plane and he flew around the country. And it was left abandoned in the desert.
Sure.
And someone managed to sell it for $22 million despite the fact...
That they didn't own it?
Don't quote me on these numbers. I'm not going to Google it. Uh-huh. So if you want to fact find me, go nuts. But I know that it was sold for a large amount of money. Did I just say 22 again?
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe I just like the number 22. So a substantial amount of money. And it was just this abandoned, very unusable plane.
Smelled of Elvis farts.
Yeah, I'm always really interested to understand why people value discarded things that just happen to belong to famous people.
Yeah. I don't get it either. If you do get it, though, and you really want to explain why you've been collecting Ariana Grande's used tissues, please email us at secondhandhaunt@gmail.com. That's 2ndhandhaunt@gmail.com.
Sounds like a cloning project.
Okay, sure. You know what? That's an answer, at least. But apart from stories of ghostly experiences, Mrs. Powell is an expert on the history of the royal castle. It began as 2 merchants' houses with a lane between them, which is the path still taken by the coach, she told me. Okay, so the picture is not showing us that there is, in fact, a big aisle through the middle of the pub.
Okay,
fair enough. It now rumbles right through the reception area. Okay, maybe not. Maybe it's been built over a bit since. So where the reception area is used to be an alleyway. I can believe that.
I'm still getting a really nice mental picture from the story, I think. I'm just imagining being in the reception and having everything kind of shake a little bit.
It's late at night and you suddenly smell a phantom horse turd.
All the smells.
But before I tell you about it, did you notice the initials carved by the front door? Who's carving all these doors? All right. 1639 W and MC.
I'm not going to count that as a person, although I really want to.
I think you're allowed to count the next sentence as 2 people because it stands for William and Mary Cubbett.
Boom.
There you go. William Cubbett and Mary Cubbett. And it is the first record of a husband and wife in a business partnership together.
Good for them.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. 1639. I'm sure those partnerships existed before then, but nobody wrote it down. Or at least nobody chiseled it into a pub door.
One would hope that there were partnerships of sorts before then.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't really want to comment on the past politics of all of that, because it's pretty
the husband is the one who always gets his name recorded in the history books because he's the one writing them.
Yeah, dim. It's very dim. Yeah, it's not a good time for humanity.
Having said that, 1639, way earlier than I expected for that kind of record. Good on them. When we first came to Dartmouth, my husband and I were surprised at the number of historians who were interested in our entrance.
Wait. We just had the carvings of their names, so it's like an essay in the carving, is there? Like, where did this come from?
I guess it's physical, hard evidence that those two people existed and carved those initials at that time. Okay. Presumably there might be other documentation that confirms that they owned that pub. In 1950, the time when I first heard the coach, Princess Marguerite, bam.
Nice.
With her lady-in-waiting, not named, can we count her?
No.
Okay. So, with her lady-in-waiting, stayed here to relive the memories of her youth. She told me how Marie Corelli, the authoress, that feels weird, mark it down as a person.
Yes, please.
I don't know if authoress is necessarily kosher these days, but again, this book is written in 1973, so that's when they were still appending S to the end of just regular professions that women happen to have. She used to anchor her luxury yacht in the river and throw fabulous parties here.
Sounds like a good friend.
Yeah. She said the dining room used to have windows made up of small panes of bottle glass. On one was scratched in Spanish the words, "Thank God for safe delivery." Superstitious Spaniards, I guess. Apparently it had been put there by 2 Spanish fugitives from the Inquisition, who had finally reached England safely. More exciting.
Yeah, right. So, all right. I tell you, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
I fully agree. I was not expecting the Spanish Inquisition to show up in this story. Spanish Armada threw me for a loop. Spanish Inquisition,
Terrifying.
Something else. Yeah. So we're saying that there's 2 unnamed Spaniards who were, let's say, presumably atheists, but it could have been a different religion, Muslim or something. Spanish Inquisition comes along and says, hey, you're going to get inquisited next month.
Not Catholic, not about it.
Yeah, pretty much. You get to stand trial or get out. They got out, got to England, and then walked up to the nearest pub, to their window, and scratched in, "Thank God for safe delivery."
At that point, I'm not sure if I'd be questioning the sentiment. It would be just the fact that they got away from the Spanish Inquisition. Because I'm pretty sure anyone that got away from the Spanish Inquisition
was not Catholic, and therefore would probably not be thanking God.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, hey, whoa now. We can only but assume that the historians were right.
Yeah, well, maybe.
I do.
Although, I just say, this text does say that it had been put there. Look, it might explain it further on. Shall we keep reading?
Yeah, absolutely. More names to collect.
During the war, when some renovations were being made... Oh, I thought it might have been the Spanish War, but no, it probably means, World War II. During the war, when some renovations were being made, the panes were taken by American servicemen as souvenirs, and the inscribed one was lost. So it's not even there.
I believe them. It sounds like something. It doesn't feel like something you'd make up, does it? Really?
It sounds exactly like something you'd make up. Two unknown Spanishmen who have a crisis of faith but still love God, and then 2 unnamed American servicemen.
I just feel like if you were going to make something up, you'd make something up that would be more interesting, but...
yeah?
Maybe.
Okay, I'll pay that.
I don't know.
Look, at some point, a phantom carriage enters this story, which is more interesting than some glass that isn't even there, right?
I'm just imagining the carriage... Ooh, there's got to be like a carriage carriage driver.
Yeah. Sorry, this is the 70s. A carriage driveress.
Yeah, I'm feeling like a really like American kind of Halloween sort of a look. Maybe like a carriage driver with like a pumpkin head.
I'm loving this image you're putting in my head. I fear we're not going to get anything like that, but we'll see. But you can see that, for a haunted hotel, the Royal Castle has the right background and atmosphere. We even have a priest hole, and there is a cooking range that goes back 3 centuries.
Priest hole?
Priest hole.
Do we throw priests into holes?
I'm going to let you guess what a priest hole is before I answer the question, because I know what it is.
I feel like it's where you discard priests.
You know what? You're not far. So, you're probably familiar with the idea that perhaps all religions don't always get along, right?
I'm familiar with the concept, yeah.
Yeah? Alright, cool. So, when, say, a Catholic priest was caught in England, somewhere where he wasn't meant to be, because for quite a long time England has been Anglican, then a priest hole was like a little secret chamber or cubby hole or trapdoor that you could just quickly hide a priest in.
Oh.
Right? So when the Anglicans came around looking for the Catholic priest, you could say, quick!
Chuck him in the priest hole.
Father Ted, quick, get in this hole. Hide in there for an hour while the Anglicans are looking around, and then we'll let you out. Sometimes these holes would have connections to the local church, so there'd be secret passageways and tunnels underground that the priests could get around unseen. Other times they're just like big enough for Harry Potter to live in.
Fun fact, my heritage is Roman Catholic, which means really nothing to me, and I've not even looked up the history of the religion. I just know that is what my family were at some point.
Fair enough. I feel like if you do look it up, you'll see that it goes back a long way. Somewhere around 2023 years, in fact.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yay us.
Whoa. Mrs. Powell is certainly not the credulous type. Okay. She is a very realistic and capable professional woman and, before coming to manage the royal castle with her husband, had never had any psychic experiences. So I guess we know that whatever happens next has got to be real, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, yeah, she's never had a ghost experience before, and now she's going to have a ghost experience.
Yeah.
They always set you up like that, don't they?
Yeah. It's always the converts that are the most...
vocal preachers?
Yeah, I don't know. The first time I heard the noise of the coach was 20 years ago, though at the time I did not realise what it was, she told me. My husband was seriously ill and in a delirium. I was nursing him, and it was very late, perhaps 2 o'clock in the morning. Suddenly, I was aware of a dull rumble coming from below. It seemed to start some distance away and then get louder and louder. I vaguely thought someone might be rolling an empty barrel, but because of my husband's condition, I did not give it much thought. So, when do most hauntings happen, I guess? This is the first story we've read, but I feel like the wee hours of the morning are going to come up pretty frequently, as is people in a delirium.
See, the light chases ghosts away, Callum. It's like the sun.
And
they're like,
how about
vampires? You know?
How about illnesses that cause delirium? Do they just normally restrict themselves to one person in a household?
I mean, you make good points. Yeah, I'm not sure about you, but I've had some terrible flus in the past. Well,
yeah, I mean, look,
a couple of cases.
It's 2023. We've just lived through a couple of years of COVID going around that has certainly knocked several people for sixes and others into the grave.
Yeah, well, yep. Yeah, that's a truth fact, my friend. But I have had flus when I was younger, even like a teenager, and I got a really bad flu once. And I remember how delirious I was in that flu-like state that I felt like I was shifting between worlds almost. Like, you know, dreams became reality, reality became a dream. Not to be overly dramatic, although obviously this is over-dramatic. But
Is this the first time you saw a ghost?
No, I mean, it was a real bad flu. Like, you know, I was sweating.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that fever dream is a phrase, right?
Yeah, and that's very much what it was. It was like a fever dream. But I remember thinking to myself in that particular state that I would have believed anything, you know? And this was just from being sick.
I mean, I had, I guess, almost the opposite when I had COVID a couple of years ago. So it was me and my wife, we were both like isolating at home, as you do when you have COVID. And a couple of days into it, I remember turning to her and saying, "Hey, I think I might be all right to do a bit of work from home tomorrow." And she said, "Callum, no, you're not." And I said, "Why? Why not?" And she says to me, "Because this is the third time I've had to tell you that you're forgetting things." That one I remembered. But it was a real wake-up call that, oh my God, my brain is not functioning correctly right now.
Yeah, could you imagine? Yeah. Obviously, you can because it happened.
Yeah.
That sounds terrifying to me, actually.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, okay, apparently I can't trust my brain or my experience of this world right now.
I think it's in those times where we really appreciate having people around us that we can trust.
Yeah.
To be there.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully...
Sorry, got all
hopefully Mrs. Powell's husband really appreciated her help during this time.
All right, so we're assuming Mrs. Powell is
may also be sick.
Delirium. Yeah.
Either way, it's 2:00 in the morning. But from his bed, the husband, he said, "There's Queen Mary's carriage just arrived. Can't you hear the horses? I don't suppose the receptionist has told her the coach is ready."
Right, so obviously we know he's in delirium.
Yes.
And
he's out of his mind.
And the assumption is that she's heard something, that he's like teetering on the edge of life and death, and because of that he can actually be in touch with the afterlife.
Let me throw out an idea here that matches all of the facts we've got so far, is that somebody actually was rolling a barrel down the street at 2:00 in the morning. I don't know, like a drunk person or something. They both heard that, and she went, "Oh, that's a person rolling a barrel down the street." He heard that and thought, "Oh, Queen Mary's ghost coach."
It's not that unlikely. I'm not sure about you, but I've actually stayed in pubs when I've been travelling when I was younger. Much younger. And they used to do restocking early in the morning, like beer barrels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Early in the morning. So I was woken up at like 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, if the pub closes at 1:00, the staff are still around, they're awake, they might be doing some work after that.
I think some of the people coming in, like, that was just when they had their shift to do stuff like that. I'm not sure if that's like it is right now, but I felt like it was the norm, and I'm only talking like 15, 20 years ago.
As he spoke, it did occur to me that the sound was rather like horses, and the noise that iron-bound wooden wheels would make on cobbles. But, as I said, I took little notice because I was so concerned for my husband who was dying. Okay? So, we're assuming that she does know what iron-bound wooden wheels on cobbles sound like. Because at the moment, there's not cobbles there, right? The inn is there.
I do not know.
They built over the cobblestone street with the rest of the pub. It's now the reception area, so I assume it's carpeted or floorboarded or something now. There's not actual cobbles. I'm trying
to figure out where you're going with this, but yeah, sure. When you said it, I was imagining that there would be still like a cobbled street out the front, or like we're still whiles off pavement, I imagine.
From the information I have here, at least, I'm assuming that she's hearing this going through where the coach alley used to be, which is now the reception area.
But, I mean, to your point, if you were even in a large house, even on the top story, and someone was rolling a barrel on a cobbled street outside of said building, there's still a good chance that you would hear that from inside the building.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, honestly,
but you know...
I mean, obviously, this sounds like an experiment.
I would also absolutely love to go to a cobbled street, roll a carriage down there with iron-bound wooden wheels, and then also roll a wooden barrel with copper hoops around it, just to see how different those two things sounded.
And that's how I like to spend my Saturdays.
Oh, look, no, we're getting time off work for this. 2 years later, Mrs. Powell heard it again, at the same time as before, 2:00 in the morning. I think you're right here, this is just the time they restock the pub, right? And she's an owner of this pub, so divorced from the running of it, she doesn't know that her employees are still there working.
That sounds fair. Although, I'm not going to lie, I don't see a bright future for her husband.
I do legitimately hope he pulls through.
But
I worry that he's not, because he's not telling this story, is he?
No. Plus, I think I remember the words, and he's dying.
Yeah.
You'd think, though, that at some point she would get more familiar with the running of the pub, although I guess, like, sometimes that shifts hands.
Oh, look, when your husband's dying, maybe you've got other things to focus on, so we shouldn't hold that against her.
It is like a factor, I think, that we forget how naive culture was about like general knowledge across the board of
publicans in 1950.
Yeah, like the world around them in general. You know, I think we don't realise how ubiquitous knowledge is these days.
We do have constant access to all the world's information at our fingertips these days, which is something we take for granted, but also maybe should keep in mind when we're looking at the past.
Also, like, more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Mandatory schooling.
Okay, yeah, that too. Yeah, schooling in the early 1900s, maybe not the greatest. The noise woke me up, she said. At first I thought that someone was rolling beer barrels about outside, so there's that thought again. Although I was very sleepy, I got up and went to the window, but there was nothing to be seen.
Except for the ghost carriage.
Well, and suddenly I realised I had been thinking of horses' hooves as I had opened my eyes. That's what we hear first, the sound of an outrider galloping in. It is followed by the noise of the coach, the opening and closing of its doors, and then the rumble of its wheels as it moves off again. But nothing to be seen.
Yeah,
correct.
Obviously, we don't have the most credible witness in the entire world here.
Again, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. She has just awoken, so she's in that REM sleep interruption mode where anything is possible. And she said it was as she woke up she was thinking of the horse's hooves. So, not after I came to my senses, I thought it sounded like horses' hooves. No, literally the first thought in her head was horses.
Now, to be fair, I think that I have a similar thing with suddenly waking up as well. You know, they sometimes I'll suddenly wake up and I can imagine something or see something. I'm not sure if you've had that experience before. Waking up in the middle of the night, disorientated.
Yeah. It's the frequent thing of night terrors, right? Ollie, I don't know if you're familiar with how real old-style pubs restock their beer cellar.
I imagine that they would have what do we call it? Like a door on the outside. It's like a cellar. What do we call it?
Yeah, there's a little trap door on
yeah,
like the
and then
side
you
of the
roll
footpath. That got a ramp that rolls the barrels straight down into the cellar for you.
And that's what I was saying before. When I used to travel and stay in pubs, that's what I got woken up to, was like throwing beer barrels down the beer barrel chute they have on the side of the building.
Yeah. So keep that in mind while I describe the sounds that she's hearing, yeah? She hears metal on the outside of wood rolling down the street. She hears a door opening and closing, and then more rumbling. That's not necessarily dissimilar from rolling a barrel up to the trapdoor, opening the trapdoor, throwing it down into the cellar, closing it, and then going to get another barrel. The only thing there that's different is perhaps the horse's hooves, but those she's already admitted were part of her dream.
All I can think of is the Monty Python sketch. Obviously, I've referenced Monty Python already. But I am, obviously a big Monty Python fan. But, when you got the
coconuts. Yes. Okay. You're right. So we've got some twat running around outside with coconuts while someone else is just trying to do his job of restocking this bar.
Sounds plausible.
Yeah. This phenomena continued for many years, not always on the same date, but always at the same time. Restocking time, right? The earliest it has been heard in any year is the 12th September, and the latest in November. So it only happens during a specific time period. So between, September, October, November.
I'm kind of scared of the idea of her becoming a ghost because they don't seem to be very social.
They just seem very stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
Of either restocking a pub or just driving a coach around for eternity.
Yeah, I like to chat a bit, Like, if I was a ghost, I'd want to sit down. I don't know. The other person can have a cup of tea. I'd sit there.
You'd want to be like the Large Marge type of ghost who picks up hitchhikers on the side of the road and talks to them for a bit before revealing that they're actually a spooky ghost person who's been dead the whole time.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. A lot more fun than just making noises in the cellar or...
Right. Oh, dear. So during that period, it is not unusual for guests to say to me, "Do you keep horses in your hall?"
You want to be loved by anybody.
What?
It's not unusual to have
Oh,
fun.
no. It's not unusual to have horses in your hall. Mrs. Powell told me I asked them what a time... No, sorry.
You are welcome, world.
Yeah. Nobody wants this. Nobody needs this. Oh, God, where were we? Okay. Mrs. Powell told me, I asked them at what time they were disturbed, when they always reply, can you guess what time?
2 a.m.?
Exactly 2 a.m. I know It's the Phantom. One visitor to the hotel was so fascinated by the ghostly sound that he engaged in a considerable amount of research to try and discover what historical fact might lie behind it. Was he just trying to drink his way through the night? Was he also being comped by his publishing house instead? According to his investigations into old records, it was found that after William and Mary of Orange came to visit... William and Mary of Orange, I think that's two new people for your list there.
Kind of lost focus
There was a William and Mary Cubbett earlier, but this is different. They were publicans. These are two royalty.
To be fair, I'm getting up in numbers. Just so you know, the count is 12.
12? Okay.
12. But that being said, I still a good 10 off getting to 22.
Where we got? We got a couple pages to go. We might get there. So after William and Mary of Orange came to take over the throne of England in 1689, they planned to visit Dartmouth, which has always been important because of its naval tradition.
But then they thought, nah.
The king was to come by ship, but because she suffered from seasickness, Queen Mary travelled down from London by road and stayed at the royal castle. She travelled down from London by road and stayed at the royal castle where she waited for her husband's ship to arrive. Why is he taking the long way around by a ship? I don't know. It's just a royal thing, I guess, that's waste everyone's time and money. William's vessel was delayed by fog and, instead of landing at Dartmouth, had pulled into nearby Brixham. As the Queen had wanted to receive the King personally, we're being attacked by a kitten here. Sorry, listeners, we have an adorable little kitten. Well, is she a kitten still? She's what, 2-3 years old? So that's a cat now, right?
Old. Yeah.
But she's
teenager.
tiny.
She's like a teenager. You teenager.
Yeah, she's got a teenager attitude with the cables on this table. Her name is Nala, and she's adorable. We love her.
Hopefully she'd interrupt. I didn't think you could hear it. Like...
No, maybe not, but... It's okay, now she's attacking us. All right, we may need to take a short break. Be right back. As the Queen had wanted to receive the King personally, a courier was dispatched as the King's ship came into port. He was followed by a coach which must have pulled up in a narrow cobbled lane that ran between the inn and another house. And for some inexplicable reason, the sounds of that coach and its outrider have echoed down to the 20th century.
Wait,
because apparently...
a different coach? Different ghost coach?
No, I think it's saying that is the coach that keeps replaying. So... It was not, in fact, the coach that Queen Mary arrived on, but it was the one that she sent to collect her husband. And that's the one that's been echoing through history ever since, because I guess ghosts can only come from notable people, not just some rando.
Why, though, right? I think I always imagined ghosts more as someone that has died, like, you know.
Well, look, we don't know. Maybe... Perhaps King William goes on an absolute coachman murdering spree in the next few sentences.
Waiting with bated breath.
Yeah. So my husband was not far wrong, Mrs. Powell said. In his abnormal state, he somehow tried to tie up the supernatural experience with modern times, and he was anxious in case our receptionist might not inform the Queen. So I guess the husband thinks the Queen is staying with them. The Queen from 300 years past? 400? Wow, that is some illness he's got. What was making the rounds in the 50s? It would have been influenza, I assume.
And the flu's been around for quite some time, I'm sure.
That had its big heyday post-World War One, not World War Two. Polio? Does that give you fever? I don't know. We're not going to look it up. We're going to move on.
Let's face that, there's a lot of illnesses that inflict humanity.
Yeah.
I think we're very, very... very, very, very fortunate to live in a time where we've got a lot of cures and we've identified a lot of illnesses and we have vaccines. I know it's a controversial topic.
No, should not be controversial at all. Get vaccinated, everybody, please. If not for yourself, then for the vulnerable people around you. That is why we have them. Herd immunity is the only way these things work.
I am double vaxxed. That's right. Not just once, but twice.
You may be a bit behind there because I think you can get up to your 5th now.
Wow.
Yeah, we've had a few boosters released. If you haven't had yours, this is a reminder to everyone, book your COVID vax, please. And heck, while you're at it, get your flu shot. Never hurts.
Yeah, big fan of the flu shot. And it comes back to the fact that there's so many vaccinations that we have, there's so many diseases that existed back then, and, well, still there's a lot of diseases that exist today.
Still around.
We're incredibly lucky, and I'm sure that barring any sort of major world disaster, we'll be even more lucky in the future. I think that we don't fully comprehend what medical care and
what a
would have been
friggin'
like.
marvel vaccinations are for the world, yeah.
Not just vaccinations, but medical care in general. Imagine medical care in the 1600s compared to now.
I know, it'd be like you're living in, I don't know, modern day America or something.
It's like you get a cut, they're like, oh, let's amputate.
I was expecting Holly to at least make a face at me then, but he just took that way on board.
Oh, sorry, what did you say?
I've just taken
what did I miss?
a totally undeserved dig at the American healthcare system there.
What'd you say? I forgot.
Nothing. You'll have to listen back.
They're expensive. They don't have universal healthcare.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, wow.
Anyway, Mrs. Powell explained that later the inn had been joined to the neighbouring building, and where the lane used to be, there is now the hall of the hotel, complete with galleries and a handsome staircase, which was built in 1835.
I like how they used to throw the word handsome around more.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, it still works.
House, a handsome staircase.
Yeah, it's beautiful, it's neat, it's sturdy, that doesn't just mean the equivalent of beautiful for male of the species.
Isn't that funny? When I was growing up, the term handsome had very much fallen into the zeitgeist for men, and beautiful had fallen into the zeitgeist for women. But back then it would have been used interchangeably, and I think that it's starting to be used more interchangeably again now. Yeah. And I don't think it was ever really meant to be masculine or feminine.
No, I doubt it. It just kind of went that way because the 19th century was what it was, I suppose. The cat is still exploring. Nala is still exploring. Oh, no, Nala definitely wants to go out. No, she doesn't need to go out. She's found a box to settle in.
I think it's nice you're keeping the cat commentary.
Yeah, I like it.
Nala cat commentary.
Hey, look, if I was listening to this podcast, I would like to know what was going on with little Nala there.
All Nala all the time. She's got cute little pads on her feet and she is walking around.
Yeah.
Oh, she's seen a bug.
Oh, God. She, not Nala, but Mrs. Powell, has no explanation as to why such an ordinary occurrence should be repeated time after time, but she has one strange story about it. One night in the bar, the phantom coach was mentioned, she said. Suddenly, a quiet stranger who was having a pint by himself said, "Should I do a voice?"
Please.
You may laugh if you like, but I have had experience of psychic things. I don't know why I've gone Irish. And I can tell you that coach is drawn by 3 grey horses. And this year is going to herald a tragedy. I don't know why I went pirate at the end.
I think with our heritage, we're allowed to go English or Scottish or Irish.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that. And some people might let me know. But
we can make fun of them all we want. They colonised this country and they're fair game.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying.
Sorry,
I'm pretty sure I've got some mixed genetics with those places. I can only but assume.
Yeah. We're allowed to make fun of them. They're our parents.
They're our kin.
I said, "Oh dear, not in the hotel, I hope." He replied, "No. It will be on the route the coach takes to get here." Later that year, the coach was heard. The same night, a local man had some kind of brainstorm. I think he was worried about his business. And he shot his wife, his little daughter, and the family dog, and then himself. Holy shit.
Why do people do that?
Oh, okay.
So
mental illness is the answer to your question, but sure. I'm sorry, listener, I wasn't expecting that to happen. We might need to edit a little warning into the start of this episode. What do you reckon?
Well, sure. But also, we are telling ghost stories. There was going to be some murder and death involved. Like, you look so shocked.
yeah, that's a good point. Okay. I think we can probably say for the entire run of this podcast, content warning, there's going to be some serious downers happening.
Well, the ghosts are going to come from somewhere.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
That being said, sorry, just to recap there, and callous as I may be, sorry,
so what has happened here is...
was that the coachman?
So after this potential Irish pirate says that on the route that the coach takes, there will be a tragedy later this year. And then, later that year, someone heard the coach, and then a depressed, mentally ill businessman shot his whole family, including himself.
Could have been a coincidence.
Yeah. I guess we have to assume as read that he lived on the route that the coach took, even though they haven't specified that. And that is kind of what the Irish pirate drunkard said, that it would be on the route.
So, he was right.
Oh, okay, yeah, here we go. This unfortunate person lived at a place where the coach would come down the hill to reach the hotel. So, indeed, this tragedy happened later that year on the route the coach took, which I assume was probably a main thoroughfare for the town. And this is England in the 50s, famously happy place. That
being said, if a car crashed into another car, and I was that guy, I'd be like, look, a tragedy.
Absolutely, yeah. The stock market crashed. It's a tragedy. It's
kind of near the root.
Yeah, it's not a specific prophecy he's uttered there, is it?
I meant a general tragedy, in the world, in the next year. One tragedy in a year.
Oh, Ollie, would you like to hear what he said about it? Because he comes back. That November, the stranger visited us again. It happened, didn't it? He said. And I felt quite ill because it was as he had predicted. I asked him how he knew, but he said he could not explain it. He just knew.
Except for specifics.
Yeah. Although Queen Mary's coach has never been seen, Mrs. Powell has seen another ghostly manifestation at the royal castle. This is late in the story to be throwing in a little curveball here, but... see where this goes.
I must admit, if I was royalty, I might, become a ghost. I only say that
just as a career option.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think the reason being is because I feel like royalty on Earth would be where they're getting the most privilege. Mm-hmm. The most.
Oh, so when they die, how dare you? I'm not going to die. I own this place.
Well, no, not so much that, but if they imagine them going to the afterlife, or let's imagine for a second that the afterlife was somewhere where everyone went, regardless of good or evil.
Sure.
Obviously theorizing here. Please don't think that I'm starting.
We're talking about ghost stories here.
Yeah,
it's fantasy all around.
Please do not take this as doctrine. I am not the Messiah. I am just.
He's a very naughty boy.
Sorry, I should have let you do that. Yeah, so imagine that they went to an afterlife, everybody was equal, and they're like, screw this. I want to go back to where I was the most important person.
Oh, I see. I like that.
Because because they, in life, they have inherent privilege that they may not get in death. Mm-hmm. And obviously, unless you're a pharaoh and you've created a chamber where you've buried your servants with you and a bunch of treasure, which obviously you took to the afterlife with you.
Well, getting back to the fact that England was Anglican there, the King or Queen was also the head of the Church of England. So they were the religious lead of the country at the time. And then, assuming they then go to heaven, they're not top dog either socially or religiously anymore, right?
Mm. Well, I'd want to go to heaven because otherwise they'd be super pissed, right? They'd be like, oh, where did all my contributions go?
R.I.P. Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh, look, you know what? It's one of the things that has been startling to realize is how popular she was, to the point where people were, some countries were wanting to stay like a monarchy.
Oh, they wanted to stay in the Commonwealth while she was alive?
Yeah, while she's alive. That was the level of popularity that this Queen had.
Yeah, it's we don't want to disappoint the Queen. When she's passed, perhaps we'll consider maybe disappointing the Crown, but not the Queen.
She seems so lovely and charming. Yeah. And then she dies and they're like, oh, we're out.
Honestly, I don't know if that has actually happened anywhere yet. And we're in Australia where that was absolutely in the cards for a while there. If you do know of anywhere from the Commonwealth who decided to exit the Commonwealth upon the Queen's death, please email us at secondhandhaunt@gmail.com. That's 2ndhandhaunt@gmail.com.
I feel like I've gotten off topic here. Do you want to bring us back?
Sure. Sometimes when I have closed up the drawing room at night, I have seen a rather nasty little man on the stairs. She explains.
Leprechaun.
He's like... he's small, like a jockey.
Leprechaun.
And he always gives me a malicious grin.
Like a leprechaun.
The first time it was a bit alarming, but he has never done me any harm and I'm used to him now. I mentioned it to an old customer once and he said... Oh no. Why, that's Darky Chase. He was an ostler who used to live in the inn stables. Everyone thought he was a little odd because he used to claim he could commune with the spirits.
What's an ostler?
That's that is the question that you have in that paragraph. Look, I'm going to go ahead and assume it's someone who works in stables, perhaps. But if you want to go ahead and Google what an ostler is, go for it. I have a cat sitting on my phone.
Ostler.
That's O-S-T-L-E-R.
Ostler. Oh, a man employed to look after the horses of people staying at an inn. So, well...
there you go.
Who knew there was a term for that?
Such a specific name. Yeah, okay.
You think with all the D&D I would know what an ostler is?
No, I feel like it's not really an occupation that's filtered down through the centuries. But I'm not sure whether I see him in my mind or with my eyes, but either way, he appears real enough.
Leprechaun.
Like the coach, he comes in spasms.
Okay, so you're clearly amused by that. Is the fact that you're...
Did he know? Did Marc know? Did Marc Alexander know what that sentence sounded like when he wrote it?
Comes in spasms?
Yeah.
I don't think I know. Why is it funny?
Oh, okay, moving on then. Mrs. Powell had another story, and though it had no connection with the royal castle, is worth recording.
Comes in spasms.
As opposed to Darky Chase coming in spasms. It concerns what can only be described as an elemental force, which haunts Dartmoor, and it is believed in by many who live in that lonely area. Throwing some shade at Dartmoor there. A friend of mine was driving in a shooting brake along a road which crosses the moor. I do not know what a shooting brake is, and I do not care to look it up, said Mrs. Powell. Suddenly she felt what seemed to be a terrific wind resistance against the car. It almost stopped it, and, even though she changed down and pressed the accelerator, the vehicle only just kept moving against the unseen force. Her dog in the back nearly went mad. It seemed as though it was trying to attack something that was on the outside of the car, something that was trying to find a way in.
Does it sound like her brakes were broken?
I don't know if broken brakes make the car slow down. It sounds like something's pushing the car backward. Like as if she's trying to drive into the wind.
First of all, that was a stupid thing to say, and I acknowledge that.
Okay.
Secondly...
I don't know how 1950s brakes work.
Well, could it be
wrong.
broken in the other term? They were too tight? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not a mechanic.
No, me neither. Moving on, it's clearly nonsense.
Well, firstly, it's actually one of the more incredible things I've heard so far, because it's like the car is being like pushed on by some sort of force.
A strong wind.
A strong wind.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes I've been on a big, long journey and been like driving incredibly fast.
Sure.
And felt the car being pushed on by an external wind from the side or something, but not
it makes a difference to me when I'm on a long journey. It gets pushed by an internal wind. Cut that now.
What did that actually mean?
No, keep going.
Cut that now. Do you mean someone farting in the car?
Yes, I mean I was farting in the car, Ollie.
Toilet humor ready.
My friend said that she had never been so frightened in her life because she was certain she was under attack from something evil.
Evil.
Her big dog was a Labrador.
Oh, Labradors are beautiful.
Yeah. and it kept going round the inside of the brake, snarling and snapping and appearing to keep pace with whatever it was that was prowling around the vehicle.
Oh, that sounds like the goblin out of a Simpsons bus.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you remember that? There was like the Simpsons Halloween episode. There was
Playing on the Twilight episode of the goblin on the wing of the plane.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, didn't see that.
But also, I guess that kind of answers the question earlier of what a shooting brake was. I guess that's the kind of car. So, I believe the animal was a nervous wreck afterwards. Gradually, the power holding back the shooting brake receded, and my friend drove hell for leather until she was off the moor.
I've always thought the idea of just the moor sounds creepy. The moor sounds like somewhere where ghosts would go.
Yeah, or werewolves attack.
Yeah.
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 Or wind blows real strong because there's no vegetation to stop it.
I feel like you know more about moors than me, but yeah.
I know a little bit more. I have heard of such a thing before, and I am sure there is something evil which roams the area. Round here, we don't delve into things on the moor when we're alone. Returning to the subject of the royal castle, Miss Powell said, because that's correct. We need to return to it because that was a total. What's the word?
Haunting?
Yeah, correct. It was a haunting.
First of all, it was a haunting. Second, do you mean it was like off topic?
Non sequitur.
It
was a non sequitur.
Yeah. That would be a much more elegant way to put it. I guess that contrary to the story, it's like a secondary haunting.
Yeah, it's just saying there's spooky stuff going on around the place. Yeah.
Not unlike a second-hand haunting.
Returning to the subject of the royal castle, Miss Powell said, I think an old place like this must collect vibrations, or whatever you might like to call them, through the centuries. For example, when we first opened this bar by expanding into the old part of the building, we had a run of dreadful luck. The staff were continually having accidents, and not a single dog would venture in. And they're supposed to be sensitive to psychic manifestations. Apparently. Finally, I asked the local vicar to come and exorcise the place. He was charming about it and held a service here. After that, the bad luck just vanished. That has been the only unpleasant aspect I have experienced in the hotel.
I don't know why, but it reminded me, recently I saw the new Haunted Mansion that came out.
The Disney one?
Yeah, the Disney one.
Set in the South?
Yeah.
I saw the trailer for that, and I was like, oh, you know what? Disney might actually take this opportunity to say some real important stuff about slavery and the ghosts haunting the past of the American South. Is any of that in there at all?
Not that I recall.
No. Of course not.
No,
Thanks, Disney.
I'm a real sucker for Disney. I think it's the small child that still loves the cartoons that is still thriving within me. And the interesting thing about the Haunted Mansion movies, and this is not a plug for Disney, I'm not getting paid for this.
Hang on, Haunted Mansion movies, multiple?
Yeah.
So you're referring to the Muppets Haunted Mansion or the earlier Eddie Murphy Haunted Mansion?
I'm referring to all three.
All three,
fact.
okay.
Yeah. So that's the series of the Haunted Mansion. So there's three, and you've just named all three. So
are they connected in continuity?
Maybe not continuity. They're all connected because they all come from the same theme, which is actually there is the
Haunted Mansions.
The Haunted Mansion, but the ride.
The
ride. Which I think there's like different Haunted Mansions like across the world. But the original ride was the inspiration for the movies.
Would you say that the Haunted Mansion series has anywhere near the amount of success as the Pirates of the Caribbean?
Well, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies went on a bit, I think.
yeah, okay.
So,
let's restrict it to the first three then, shall we?
The first three, sure. Where was I going with
You saw the recent Haunted Mansion film, and...
and there was a priest. It reminded me of that.
Okay.
There was a priest in it. The really interesting thing about the latest Haunted Mansion, which I don't recall from the other three, was like when you went into the Haunted Mansion and you saw the ghosts, then they would follow you around for the rest of your life.
Oh, I see. You would be haunted.
Indeed.
By the mansion.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I actually thought it was a really fascinating concept.
Worth a watch?
I'm probably gonna watch it after you go. Like, to be honest.
Okay, all right, okay.
For like the
glowing praise, I'll watch
for the nth time. Oh, but do not take my word for it because I'm also known to like bad TV shows and movies and a lot of things that people might consider trash.
I look forward to hearing more of your recommendations in future episodes. But for now, would you like to hear one final visitor?
Yes. Sorry.
To the hotel?
I didn't mean to derail, but decoach.
I know. Oh, I know. I know exactly how it sounded like the story had finished, but there's a tiny bit more for some reason. Good news is you can put one more name on your list. It was Harry Price, the famous expert on ghosts, came here.
Oh, I figure.
He said the psychic atmosphere was very benevolent, and that's what visitors to the hotel feel. Guests find nothing frightening or evil about the Phantom Coach. In fact, they are usually delighted when they realise they have heard it. The end. Yeah, because they think it's a Monty Python reference.
I was just being fun with the horsey sounds.
Yeah. I'd say they're delighted because they're like, oh, the bar has restocked, goody. But I think we'll call things there. Because she's really attacking me. Thank you.
Thus ends the tale of the haunted carriage.
The Queen's Carriage in the Royal Castle, and also a small ghost called Darky Chase, and some wind on a moor.
Well, I very much enjoyed the subtle tones of your book reading there, Callum. And
let's be honest, mate, we barely got through that. Would you be interested in listening to another one next week?
100%.
Next fortnight? Next month, whenever we get together? Yeah.
What's up next?
Tell you what. I'll give you two options. The first one is under the category of With Their Own Eyes, which is the story of the Chow's Hotel in Chard, which might give us some slightly more interesting information than ghostly rumblings. The other one that I'm thinking of doing is under the category of Murder Bloody Murder, which is the Caxton Gibbet in Caxton.
That one.
Okay, so it sounds like we're doing the Caxton Gibbet in Caxton. I don't know if you're familiar with what a gibbet is. And if you're not, we'll find out next week. This will be morbid. Either way, we will read one of those stories next time on Second Hand Haunting.
Ooh.